On this episode of Insight, is coming into money all it's made out to be? Jules, you're an army veteran. You served in the Middle East and East Timor. In 2019, you became ill. What happened?
I was about to deploy to Iraq. It was my fourth deployment, and I had the normal suite of pre-deployment vaccines, and several weeks later I started feeling quite unwell with really bad sinus pain. And then I couldn't walk properly. It was like I was drunk, and so I went to a local physio and he drove me to hospital himself, and I got out 6 weeks later. First 2 weeks I lost about 15 kilos. Sadly, I found them again. But once I got out of hospital 6 weeks later, I started having seizures, which I'd never had. So that sort of put a new spin on things because I thought I was out of the woods and I wasn't. So every sort of 3 to 4 months I'd have another seizure, so we were back to square one. And then the following year I'd have a seizure and then go blind in my right eye completely the next day. So that was, I guess, the paradigm kept shifting insofar as what was this illness, and it kept, I guess, changing over time, which made it very frustrating.
During that time, you bought a Lotto ticket on a whim. Did your luck change?
Yes, it was with my new girlfriend, now wife. We walked to a local super bar and I quite flippantly said, fresh Lotto, and spent $19.90. And the next morning I got an email saying, basically, you're a winner, but due to security and privacy, we can't tell you how much. Please scan your ticket or go in store. And I was like, that's a bit strange. So I scanned my ticket and I'd won just over $928,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you won almost $1 million. How did you react?
I was pretty calm. As you know, I've been in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So I walked in and told my girlfriend, now wife, and I became instantly so much better looking. So I told her, and then I rang my mother a matter of minutes later, and she thought I'd had a seizure because it was sort of 6:30 on a Sunday morning, and any strange phone calls were not good news from the preceding couple of years. So I told my mother and two of my best mates and woke them up, and likewise they thought I had a seizure, and I think everyone's like, far out, mate. Finally some good luck. So quite funnily, I'd organised for a friend to pick us up that morning and take us out for morning tea for my now wife's birthday, and so he was in a Mustang taking us. I said, guess what, mate, I've won Lotto. He's like, far out. So I think it just felt very surreal for at least the first 24 hours.
What did you do with your windfall?
It takes 2 weeks to get the money. You have to send a form to Lotto, and then they check your bank account about 3 times and it turns up. And I bought a house 10 days after receiving the funds. Wow. Yeah. Did
you at any point think, I could just do anything I want?
I was in a shopping centre and I realised I could buy anything there, and I was like, oh, well. I considered a hair transplant. I said, no, I'll be sensible, buy a house, and it didn't feel real. I thought someone was going to knock on my door for about 6 months and say, get out of my house. But it was just, I guess, all the ducks aligned. And I guess the biggest thing was just some certainty in my life, because I'd had so much uncertainty. I knew I was leaving the Defence Force. I could have some geographic stability in Canberra and stay in my house, which was, that in of itself was a really nice feeling. I didn't know if I'd ever drive again. There was a lot of uncertainty, but the one thing I could say is, well, I've got a house and I can stay put for however long I want.
Dan, 15 years ago, you came into money to the tune of $1.6 million. How?
I'd like to say I was young and foolish, but I was 29, so I was probably old enough to know better. But I found a glitch in the National Australia Bank system. And long story short, I was able to make my account balance look like it had millions of dollars in there when it didn't really have millions of dollars.
So you basically had all this money. The bank sort of honoured it?
The bank actually thought that I had the money there in my account, so I could go to the ATM every night and just do a transfer between my accounts, and that money would stick there for 24 hours before it reversed. So then I could go into the branch and, literally ask the teller how much is in my account, and they'd tell me that there was $1.6 million in there, and just let me draw on whatever I wanted to,
Once you realised the National Australia Bank system was malfunctioning, how did you feel?
Felt probably a bit more alive than I had before, definitely. Yeah, it was like discovering fire or something for the first time if you're a caveman, or it was extremely addictive.
You were living in rural Victoria when you discovered the glitch. What did you spend the money on?
At the start, I just bought a round of beers down the pub, random things like a new fridge. We used to do pretty juvenile things like leave money on the ground for people to pick up. It was more about experiences for me. I never really cared about money that much. So I gambled more than the TAB would make in a month in one night. So the TAB kind of terminated my employment, or got the publican too. My girlfriend at the time found out and ended it. So the only thing I had going in my life was a limitless credit card. The way I can describe it is you get all your friends in a circle and you say, hey, what do you want to do today? And so some people wanted a car, some people wanted a horse. You know, there was a lady who, you know, she used to love dressage, and so we bought her a warm blood horse. Like just random, completely random things. So as the spending kept on getting higher and higher and higher, I guess the bank got used to it, kind of in a way. They'd call at the start saying, did you just go to Louis Vuitton? And I'd say, yeah, I just went there. And they'd say, oh, no problem, we're just looking after your security. And I was like, not sure about your security, but...
How much did the horse cost?
The horse cost about $50,000.
Wow. Over how much time and how much did you withdraw?
I kept the spree going for about 4.5 months. I stopped by myself because I'd become a whole different person, and I spent $1.6 million over 4.5 months.
Eunice, you also went to the NAB, but for a different reason, a loan. What did you need the loan for?
I needed a loan to actually get my car fixed.
And how much were you looking to get?
$2,000. And I'm thinking that, you know, that was a lot of money that I was asking for. I felt nervous about it, but it was for my car to get fixed.
Well, what did you use the car for?
My grandchildren, getting them to and from school, their medicals, dentists, and all the necessary things that a nan and a mum has to do. But I felt very uncomfortable. I walked in there, I felt very intimidated with the necessary things that you have to do, paperwork. Then I walked up to them and said, would like to borrow $2,000 to see about getting my car fixed.
Did the bank give you the loan?
No, definitely not. They actually suggested for me to go over to Good Shepherd, which was just across the road from the NAB Bank.
And Good Shepherd is a not-for-profit that works with NAB, and they offer no interest loans.
Yes.
What happened when you went there?
I felt so comfortable walking in there because of the staff that was there. I didn't feel intimidated with the necessary paperwork. Because of their friendliness, I felt very comfortable with walking in. I'm thinking, I hope that I can get this loan.
And were you approved for a no-interest loan?
I certainly was.
When that happened, how did you feel?
Oh, I was over the moon. It was my little bomb. But after that got fixed up and getting that loan through Good Shepherd, I was just whizzing around here, there. It's only a little 4-cylinder, but everything got done, and myself and my daughter used to drive it also. We should just whiz around everywhere.
Susan, you've been entering competitions since you were 12. Did you have much luck back then?
I would win small prizes, very modest things like books or theatre tickets, movie tickets, makeup and skincare, just nice little things that were always enjoyable to win.
14 years ago, you won some cash.
I did.
How?
I entered a competition hosted by a major financial institution. They were asking for 25 words or less about women and superannuation, and something that I hold dear to my heart. I love superannuation. I think it's an important thing. You've covered it. And my 25 words or less obviously struck a chord because I won that particular prize.
And how much was that prize?
It was a cheque for $25,000.
Wow. What did that 25 grand windfall mean for you?
I was fortunate that I found a couple of articles at the time that I won talked about the way you should process and think about a windfall and the mindset you should apply to think through what you actually want to use it for. And so it led me to the natural conclusion that I wanted to do further education. So it funded me to do, as a mature age student, some further postgrad studies, which I absolutely loved.
Our next guests also fancied their chances, but they never truly believed they would win.
Working as two nurses, we felt like the lottery was the best chance of getting that leap ahead. So we had bought 3 tickets for every draw, and we'd done that for the last 15 years. We can't believe that we finally got the phone call.
They said, well, I'm pleased to let you know that you've won first prize. I said, that's a house, right? And they said, you've won a 5-bedroom house in Queensland on 2 acres, fully furnished, and there's a gold package that goes with that of about $90,000. So total prize was 2.74 at the time.
The main bedroom is beautiful. I love sitting in bed and looking at the view. The view is spectacular. We kind of just looked at each other and realised we're going to be okay. So we were kind of jumping up and down and couldn't wait to tell our 3 sons.
So we found out about the win in November of 2023. We managed to pack up 15 years worth of stuff out of an old house and move from the Blue Mountains up to Queensland and be ready to go by the start of the new school year.
It was a whirlwind. We didn't have much of a chance to say goodbye to family and friends with the frenzy of packing up and moving. We had to leave our jobs that we loved. I am quite nervous about telling people. I do wait and sort of observe and feel my way. You're not sure how people are going to react to it. At first, moving into the home, I felt like I was living in a holiday. But I must admit, it really does still feel like that. This is definitely the best thing that's ever happened to us. But you have to dream it and you have to be in it to win it.
Alex and Beth, you're both nurses with 3 boys. What was your life like before you won the house?
Our life was a juggle. We never saw each other because both being shift workers and in the nursing profession, we worked opposite each other to manage caring for our 3 children.
Have you given up work since you moved to Queensland?
I'd like to, but it's really not feasible. You've still got to pay the bills, and we've won an asset prize here, not a cash prize. So it's, it's all tied up in the house and tied up in the property and things like that.
We worked hard to get our qualifications, and we enjoy our jobs. But now we can just do it a little bit differently. No more working Christmas Day.
What was it like when you had that first Christmas Day together?
The first Christmas Day we had off was at our old home to farewell it. And then it took a year and we actually had Christmas by ourselves in the new house, which was highly unusual because we have our family all still living here in New South Wales.
David, you belong to a network where members have assets of between $50 million and $1 billion. Was your family always wealthy?
The family I grew up in was wealthy. So my father, his family in Poland before the Second World War, they were a very comfortable family. He was sent to a concentration camp, to Auschwitz. He was a slave labourer. And most of the family were murdered. Only he and his brother survived. And my father was sick for many years after the war and ended up coming to Australia to join his cousins who came here before the war. And they were already in business and he joined them in business and they were very successful.
How did they build their wealth?
The business was in textile manufacturing and later in commercial property.
So you were born into money and advise some families in that wealth network. What does that involve?
I'm not a financial advisor. I help families navigate decision-making around wealth, raising children with wealth, succession planning, what's called governance, which is really the rules by which families with significant money operate.
Do you help people navigate things like when they suddenly come into money?
Yes. So money is a construct. Money has value, but it also has meaning to us, and it means different things to different people based on our upbringing. And we form these ideas about money at a relatively young age and they tend to stick with us. So when somebody comes into a sudden change in their financial situation, it can be really challenging. You've suddenly got all this money and you don't know what to do with it because you may have a script around money, an internal script that is subconscious to say money represents this. And then suddenly you've got too much or don't know what to do with it and say, now what?
How do you talk to kids about money?
Talking to kids about money is a challenge, especially when you are blessed to have plenty of it. Because, again, kids get this idea about money and what it's worth from a young age, and educating them to say, you may have a lot, but that's a blessing, so be humble about it. you know, it's an accident of birth. But to understand that there are plenty of people out there who are not as fortunate as you, and how can you use money not just to enjoy a very good lifestyle, but to live a more meaningful life.
How did you educate your own children around managing wealth?
We tried to strike a bit of a balance. We're generous with our kids and we think that's important. I've seen some families who try to withhold their wealth because they think if you've got too much money, then you'll be spoiled. And I call it the Goldilocks zone between giving your kids too much and too little. But it's really important to teach kids, no matter what, to learn how to make financial trade-offs and have a healthy attitude to money, not to spend it willy-nilly. It's a challenge.
Have you seen cases where wealthy parents have spoilt their kids?
Oh, yeah. Certainly. That's one end of the spectrum where you give them everything and money means nothing to them.
Rob, what was your understanding of money growing up on Sydney's northern beaches?
I grew up when the beaches wasn't as flash as they are now. So my mum's a vet and my dad was an IT worker with the state government. We didn't live an opulent life. My mum later bought into the animal practice and she's gone gangbusters. It's a different story for them now. But back then, we could pay our bills, but we didn't have flash cars or anything remotely showy. Yeah.
How many siblings did you have?
I'm one of 7.
You married into a wealthy family in India. How did that come about?
So I'd just graduated from marine engineering school from the Maritime College, and I called up my best friend from high school and I said, "Where are you? What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm working for the Danish Trade Commission in Bangalore in India." And I said, "I've got nothing to do. Should I come over?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've got a couch." So I flew to India, was staying with him, and so I went to a party across the road, and then my future father-in-law said, "Come back tomorrow night. We're having a gallery opening. You'll meet my wife and daughter." So yeah, no worries. Went back the next night. We'd had all of the Danish CEOs travelling around India, and this was their last stop before they flew home. So my mate was exhausted from his week of entertaining these guys around India. So he gave me the credit card and all these beautiful Danish CEOs and said, "Take these guys out in the town, show them crack a night, and then send them off home in the morning, and make sure they all get on their planes." I was like, yeah, no problem. So I walked up to the guy's daughter and I was like, "Oh, I've got to take these guys out for a drink. Can you give me a hand?" And she was like, yeah, no stress, no problem. So she came with me and we went out dancing and drinking and it was really good fun because we were buttering these guys up, right? And then dropped her off because she lived across the way from me and I was patting her dog. She had a Great Dane as a guard dog. And I said, "Geez, your dog smells awful. I'll come back in the morning and I'll give him a bath." And we were pretty drunk, and she was like, "Yeah, sure you will." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And then came back in the morning, got the dog, took him out the back, starts washing him. He bit me because I don't think he'd ever had a bath before. So, and she's, it was a bit of a funny thing. Anyway, we started dating from then onwards. Yeah.
Wow, the Great Dane bath.
The Great Dane bath did it. Yeah.
Skip forward, what was the wedding like?
It was wild. I went for a week, thousands of people. We did it mostly at our house, but the house would be stripped down and then all the decorations would be changed colours and it would all be redone for each. So that's a Sangeet, and then you have different events. There's a Hendi and all the different things.
How much do you think the wedding all cost?
I know it cost upwards of $1 million Aussie.
How different was it from a wedding back home, say?
Oh, a family wedding for me. I've got one next week. I'm from a big family, maybe 40, 50 people. Yeah, this is going to be out in the country somewhere between Canberra and Sydney.
You jokingly suggested eloping and taking the money instead. What was your father-in-law's...
I wasn't not joking at all.
Oh, really? What was your father-in-law's reaction to that?
Well, at the time, right, that kind of money was a forever home. And I'm like, this would set us up for life. Do you realise that? And he's in Australia and he's like, yeah, I understand that, but I've been going to all of my friends' weddings for the last however long, and I've got one child, one daughter, so I've got to put on the wedding that takes all these guys out to town for the... I was like, all right, it's your money, so you do what you want with it, yeah.
You lived in your wife's family home in Bangalore. What was the house like?
It was a massive old English house. It's a funny story for that family. They were very, very wealthy before the Raj era ended. When the Raj era ended, the family had a bank and most of their properties and things taken. It was only by chance that his mother had bought that house for somewhere for the boys to live while they were going to school, and that was one of the properties that the government didn't take.
Do you know how much the house was worth?
I asked him once and he had it evaluated at 36 million US. Wow. So it's probably many X times that now.
And did you have kind of staff and help?
There was a face hiding behind every corner in your house. Like, you just get up and they got used to me, like, wandering around naked or just doing my thing. Like, initially, the maids were a bit funny about it, and then afterwards they just say morning, morning, and you just get on with life. Like, it wasn't as big a deal. But you have drivers and you have secretaries. We had a carpenter and different people on staff all the time.
What was your daily life like in India?
So I was working at sea, and then I'd crew change, chopper back to Bangalore. I'd always try to get out of the city because I'm not a big city person. So we used to go to Kabani, which is a safari lodge. We'd go to Goa a lot, and I spent a lot of time in Sri Lanka as well, which I really enjoyed.
Did you miss Australia?
Yeah, I don't think... I mean, we talked about living in Italy or Tuscany or something like that, but I think for me, it was nice to come home.
Reggie, in 2003, you went from working in a fish and chip shop in Tasmania to a household name after you won the TV show Big Brother. How did that win change things for you?
Gosh, it was really bizarre because I went on to Big Brother because I wanted a holiday. And then, 3 months later, I ended up winning the show. But it didn't feel like a win because it felt like I've had this amazing experience. And at the end, I was more excited about winning the PlayStation. But it didn't feel like I'd won.
You won $250,000.
Yeah.
You've described making some poor choices around that money and ended up splitting from your husband.
Yep.
What happened after that?
The relationship broke down. I left, money to help pay off the house that was in Tasmania. And I moved here to Sydney to look for work and hope, I was like, all this crazy world, I'm going to get a really good job or get into the media or radio or whatever, but that didn't happen. I did meet this guy, though, who made out he was a TV producer, and we filmed a TV pilot doing a travel show, and then he ended up ripping me off $40,000. And then I couldn't get a job for 2 years. No one would take me seriously.
Of that $250,000, how much did you have left?
Just over $60,000.
And because you had no work, that's what you were living off?
Yeah, I had to live off that. And I also had to pay to get a rental here. I paid like $20,000 up front to get a bloody unit. And then things went bad there and I had to move out and I couldn't get my money back from that.
Was that the end of your run of bad luck?
No, I've had a lot. I shouldn't laugh. God, I could write a book about all my stuff that's happened. No, so, then I found out that I had this eye disease called retinitis pigmentosa. So I am legally blind. I've just got 8 degrees of pinhole vision, no peripheral vision, no night vision. And that's made life a lot hard, yeah.
You remarried and had 2 kids. Did things turn around for you then?
At the start it did, and then I had Mia, my beautiful daughter Mia, and then I had my son Lucas, but he was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, which is a lung disease. It's a horrible disease to have, yeah, so.
What were the impacts of all that on your life?
Well, because of my eyesight, I had to hand in my driver's licence, so that took away all my independence. And then with Lukey's illness, I then went into bad depression for about 2 years, just in this horrible hole that I thought I was never going to get out of. But one day I just snapped out of it and moved on from it. And I'm like, I'm never going to go down that path again, fingers crossed.
How did that second marriage go?
So the second marriage ended up falling apart, sadly, but we're still mates to this day. We had to be because of Lucas's illness, spending a lot of time in and out of hospital, and going to appointments together. Yeah, so it was sad that broke down as well.
Alex and Beth, you won a house and gold bullion package worth $2.7 million. Did you tell others about your win?
The first people that we told was our 3 boys. We found out just before school was going to come home. So that was really exciting to tell them. And then we did call our family, and then we did invite our family and friends. We had too much champagne, didn't we?
Yeah, there's a few weeks of champagne. I don't want to touch the stuff ever again. It's too much.
Did you sometimes feel a bit cautious about who you told?
Definitely. I think once we had moved interstate and we were meeting new people and trying to make new friends and establish ourselves in a new community where we really had never heard of the town or never, thought we would live in Queensland. So definitely when we first meet people, I'm very cautious. It's not the first thing that I would mention. I sort of feel my way in the conversation, and it'll generally come up when it gets to the point where they ask, what brought you to Queensland?
Right.
Was it work? Was it, schools or no?
And then we...
You have to tell them then.
Let them know.
We want a house.
We want a house.
You're not going to believe me, but...
Yeah.
Alex, you could have cashed in the house. Why did you choose to move into it over selling and putting that money in the bank?
Yeah, look, we gave all of that real serious consideration. We didn't want to uproot the children, but, there was opportunity. It's a big sign from somebody saying, here's your opportunity, mate. This is as easy as it's going to get to do something with the family, move into a bigger house. We were starting to outgrow the house that we were in. But yeah, it was definitely not taken lightly, that decision.
Do you think things would have worked out differently for you if the prize was a cash prize?
Not having millions of dollars in the bank just sitting there as liquid asset, you didn't feel obliged to help other people out with like their mortgage or like family, friends. It's a bit hard to do that when it's not a cash prize.
Beth, you sold your family house near Sydney to move into the prize home. Was there any money left over?
Yes, we actually do have some money that was in credit once we did sell it and, paid off the mortgage component that we still owed. It had never occurred to us to have this type of money. So especially the first year, we really just sort of parked it there. And then we've just been trying to learn what to do with it to make it last. As 2 nurses, we could never make that type of money that quickly ever again. So we want to be very sensible with what we do. We know that we're going to be okay and the children are going to be okay because we have this buffer.
David, what is your advice to those who suddenly come into money?
Take a break. Don't rush into anything. It's a shock to the system and you don't know what to do with it. So whatever you do, do slowly and deliberately and find people that you can trust to guide you through it. And that's the most important thing. People who have that experience, who know the space, who can give you sound advice, help you say, okay, my life has changed. It's time to reset my goals into something reasonable and make sure that this windfall is something that can really change my life for the better in a sustainable way.
Do you advise people around how to manage potential demands from family and friends?
Yes, and that's a real challenging issue for something like this, particularly if it's public or if it's known to a lot of people, because people will come out of the woodwork and not all of them are nice people. They don't have your interests at heart, they've got their interests at heart.
Is it hard to make genuine connections when you're wealthy?
It can be. It's certainly something that sits in the back of your mind, questioning, is this person genuine? What do they really want?
Reggie, you won $250,000 on Big Brother in 2003 but lost almost everything afterwards. You went on the show again 20 years later and won another $250,000. Did you treat yourself with some of that money?
I took the kids on a holiday. We went to New Zealand, which was lovely.
You were losing your sight at this stage.
Yeah.
What was it like to go on these holidays and sort of see things?
Oh, look, it was amazing to go and see things with the kids, because I'm going to wake up one day and it's not going to be there ever again. So it was just awesome to be able to do that.
Jules, you also experienced illness, including seizures and blindness. How's your health now?
It's very stable. Sadly, I got sick again and missed my honeymoon.
Oh.
So that wasn't brilliant timing. I came off my monthly blood plasma and started getting very bad tremors and then went blind in this eye again. So my wife still went on our honeymoon because it was her brother's wedding in Japan, so that was completely understandable. So that wasn't good timing. However, I get blood plasma infusions every month. They're critical, and I get a full day infusion every 6 months, and that stops basically the disease resurfacing. Being an autoimmune thing, it just manages that, which is good. And I work 3 days a week, which is good, and I feel fit and healthy, which is great.
When you won the Lotto, it was only a week or so after you'd been given some transfusions, I understand?
Yes, they sent my blood to America to get a diagnosis, and the condition is extremely rare, and my 17-year-old just said in his 30-year career he's seen 20 cases like mine. So my mum always said I was special, but thankfully they got a diagnosis.
When you came into that money, did people treat you differently?
Certainly my neurologist said of all the people who I wanted to win Lotto, it was you. I think it was just some good news, long overdue. I think it was just joy, to be honest, given what I've been through. And that was really nice. They were happy that I got married to my now wife. We had a lovely house, and I just had some stability. I never got a sense, I love watches. I bought a couple of nice watches, which I think my friends would have been very upset if I hadn't done that. And I bought an apartment for my father to live in. I bought him a car. But it's a lot of money, but for some people it's a rounding error, whereas most Australians, I suspect, would give their eye teeth for that amount of money in this day and age. So it's really being sensible with it, being very appreciative. I feel I don't act any different, and I don't feel like people treat me any differently.
Dan, you exploited a bank glitch in your favour and you enjoyed the high life. Did people treat you differently when you came into $1.6 million?
Yes, I probably treated myself differently.
Yeah.
I remember one night I shouted the whole restaurant dinner, and a lady came up to me and said, "Are you the richest guy in Australia?" And I said, No, I think I'm 7th. And
did you kind of like the feeling of being able to do that?
there was like a confidence that I've never had before, definitely. And although I had a lot of anxiety around actually doing it because I thought I was going to get caught at any time. I'd have nightmares about the SWAT team sort of, storming in and that kind of thing. I don't know why it was a SWAT team. I didn't have any guns, but that's what it was in the dream. And I dreamed that I won the lottery as well during the time, and then I'd wake up and be in this weird reality of kind of being a lottery winner. So it was very, it was tough on the brain. Yeah.
How were you feeling about the theft at that stage?
I kind of started it as a bit of a joke. So it ended up being, quite serious because I thought that every transaction I was ultimately going to add to my prison sentence. I changed who I was as a person and I didn't like who I'd become, so I wanted to get that back.
You reported your theft to the bank. What happened?
They said that they were going to come and get me, and then nothing happened. Yeah.
For how long did nothing happen?
About 3 years, nothing happened.
What did you end up doing?
The anxiety kind of built and built, and I eventually I had to do what I felt was right by any means possible. So I told the media about what happened just to get some closure on the whole thing, and it was stranger than fiction.
Why did you dob yourself in?
Because I just lost myself as a person. I just didn't know who I was anymore. I just didn't like who I'd become, so...
After you told your story to the media, what happened?
They kind of made it out that it was the first time I was telling the story, they eventually issued a warrant for my arrest, and so they arrested me and charged me, and so I went to jail for a year.
What were you charged with?
Obtaining financial advantage by deception, but I really went to jail because I admitted it. I think I could have got off, but that wasn't my desire.
How did you feel when you had that closure, even though it meant 12 months in jail?
It felt so good. My brain is a little bit different to other people, so I saw jail as kind of a bit of experience as well, which sounds weird to say, but that's just me.
How's life today?
Yeah, life's good. I've got a normal job. I help people give up gambling, the problem that I had. I'm loving it, yeah.
Rob, you were enjoying a millionaire's lifestyle in Bangalore. Were there any downsides to it?
It's a wonderful life where you sort of jump from 5-star hotel to 5-star hotel, and nobody does 5-star like Indians do. It's absolutely opulent beyond what you can imagine. But you drive past the exact opposite on the way to and from. And there was a young fella that lived out the front of our place most of the time, and he'd been acid attacked as a child, and his face had melted to his neck, and he'd be begging like that. And I'd often give him food, and I think my mother-in-law was organising to have his whole setup redone. My mother-in-law did a lot of this sort of case-by-case stuff for people in the neighbourhood.
What impact did seeing that poverty have on you?
It's tricky to live with the bigger picture in India, the corruption in the government and that sort of stuff going on as well. And then just the day-to-day suffering is a lot more than you just get here.
Did the family use their money to help others?
Yeah, absolutely. My mother-in-law was doing a lot of interesting stuff with the mosque and the church and the temple. She was in everything. My father-in-law was an atheist and my mother-in-law was in everything. That's how they, yeah.
Your marriage ended and you came back to Australia. Did living that wealthy lifestyle change you?
I like to think it didn't, but yeah, of course it does. I didn't realise at the time. I think you sort of deal with the ending of the relationship before you really double back and think about the financial implications of it. Yeah, it definitely changes you as a person.
Did you ever miss parts of that wealthy lifestyle?
Yeah, when my car regos up and all the... No. Yeah, of course. It's really fun.
Did you get a settlement?
No. I left the marriage, so I just walked away from everything.
David, you have a strong tradition of giving back. What does that look like?
It's something that I grew up with. My parents were very active in community, and one of my earliest memories was my mother taking me to a community organisation that would cook kosher meals for people in hospital. And she'd take me on my way to school. A bunch of women were cooking the whole day, and I'd chop vegetables, peel vegetables. So it was really very, very hands-on. And my father as well was very involved in a lot of communal organisations and supporting them in multiple ways. That made a big impact on me in terms of, knowing that I was blessed, and therefore it sort of comes with an obligation to say, well, how can I use that to help others?
You have a sort of 3 T's approach to giving. What is that?
The 3 T's of giving is giving with time, talent and treasure. So when we think about giving, it's not just writing cheques, giving financial gifts, but because as people we have so much other things we can give.
Why is it important for you to do that work?
It's baked into my culture, driven by my Jewish values and also this sense of reciprocity. If I've received something, then I ought to give something as well.
Eunice, you got your car repaired with a no-interest loan. What does other people's generosity mean to you?
Oh, look, it just made a big difference to me personally, to my family, to my community, to the children.
Do you share your experience with your community?
I certainly do, and I love doing that because of how it made me feel in relation to, getting what I wanted and needed. I just went out to my community and just spoke to... I love talking and I just spoke about the good service that I actually received from.
It was tough. I was living in the garage, out the back of my parents' place with no running water. My dream at that time was to get a roof over my head. Quite often after a long day's work, I'd head down to the beach. I'd see like a little bit of loose matter or like plastic that could end up in a turtle's mouth. I'd just throw that down my wetsuit or put it in my zip pocket down in my boardies. Buying a home did seem like an impossible dream. I like to make dreams a reality. I didn't realise I was frugal early on in life. I guess it's part of my behaviour now. Here comes the money. Hey! Hey, beauty! I've been able to collect enough bottles and cans for a house deposit through years of working at music festivals and cleaning up the streets. I live on New South Wales East Coast and I've got a beautiful little 2-bedroom fishing shack that I love. Look, I found some of my furniture at bush doors, music festivals, council pickups, the odd back alley, the odd little gem, all sorts of different ways. This was a bit of street bounty off the side of the street, the rug and the chairs. Microwave I found on the street, water bottles here I got from cleanups at bush doors and things like that. I thought this plant was probably too cute to throw out. This was a table found on the street. In the top drawer, I had a couple of coins, and this was one of them. There's a little gold coin there, struck at the Perth Mint. Still keeps going up in value. Seeing other people save for homes was like a real aha moment for me. I really realised that there was benefits to working hard, having my head up and bum down, and noticing the draw. I believe that you can give anything a crack in life. I love this little fishing shack. I'm getting buried in the backyard.
Damien, how much money did you make collecting cans and bottles for your house deposit?
It was about $46,000, but I'm still collecting them today.
And how much time did it take you?
Years. It's been a long journey. I feel like it's still going. I'm still on the path to collecting cans and bottles and helping the environment. You know, like I really enjoy it. Everywhere I look, I got to stop myself sometimes. I got to put some boundaries in place because I drive off the road. You know what I mean? I can't do that. It's again, you know.
Do you also have a day job?
I do. I've got a 9 to 5. I've got a couple of different hats actually, so feel like I've got a few different day jobs going at the moment. But yeah, this is definitely one of them.
Where does your thriftiness come from?
I believe it's like passed on, like intergenerational. I think it's come down through like, you know, war times, 30s, Great Recessions and all that type of stuff, you know. Nan and Pop and great grandma, like they would, you know, cook like the oldest, like, you know, stuff in the back of the freezer, like nothing would ever get wasted, you know, there would be a veggie patch out the back. You know, then it would come through to like, you know, me and Mum and Dad, like, you know, we'd go to the tip shop when kids and that, we'd get like a couple of silver coins and, you know, choose whatever you want. Like, we'd go and get boogie boards, surfboards, you know, like teddy bears, all sorts of cool stuff, you know what I mean? So then it's just kind of grown from there. And, yeah, next thing you know, I think, you know, reading a couple of like key books like Barefoot Investor and, you know, Money Mindset, things like that, it's really helped me kind of, you know, formulate some good boundaries and kept soccer money away for like many years, you know.
How many cans did you have to collect for that $46,000?
460,000.
Helen, you're Damien's mum. Why is saving money and recycling so important to you?
Well, I've been a keen recycler all my life. Recycling's key to our environment and sustainability. And saving and recycling go very well hand in hand. They're wonderful habits to have. And saving gives you freedom. It gives you choices in life, which is very important, and security.
Did you teach Damien when he was young about the importance of all that?
Yes, and when we lived on the Gold Coast for a while, our highlight of the week was going to the Tugun tip shop to give them a couple of gold coins and say, off you go. And often they'd get soccer boots, school boots, you know, Doc Martens. It's amazing what you could find.
Damien, how important is money to you?
Well, I think money's a vessel. It's like a form of energy, you know, so I think it's really important. It's important that I feel as though if you look after your money, it'll look after you, so it's really important.
And that sense of security to have a home, and how does that feel?
Absolutely. It's amazing. I feel blessed, you know, uplifting, you know, a lot of like a weight's taken off my shoulders. It's a really, really beautiful feeling.
Alex and Beth, you won a prize package worth millions. What has that meant for your family?
I think we were brave, taking a chance on something that was unknown. My eldest was in the halls at high school, and I picked him up, he said, "Oh, Mum, there was kids walking around with their surfboard under their arm between the different classes. I definitely wouldn't have seen that in Blue Mountains."
Yeah, it's been amazing. Like I said, we've expanded our property. It's 2 acres. The kids can run around. You've seen the size of them. Like they're not getting any smaller. And yeah, they've got a big pool they can swim in. They've got access to the beaches and all the things they could ever want.
And what's it like to have the family time together? You were both shift workers. Has that made a big difference? You can, I presume, get to like sports days, get to school things.
Yes, we've been able to say yes. Historically, when we were here, I said to the boys they can choose one activity or one sport. And Alex missed a lot of...
I missed a hell of a lot of the kids growing up. Worked a lot of afternoons, weekends. I'm not only hours away, but I was like thousands of kilometres away with the job I was doing in aeromedical retrieval. But despite all the fancy, sort of shiny new things that we've got, the thing that we've really won was the time back with the kids and just... Yeah.
Absolutely, that's the real prize for us. Is our kids are at those ages where they still need us, and they're still just happy to be in our company. And yeah, we've got this opportunity to walk them through new schools and a new
Just don't
state.
get that back, so
Wow.
yeah.
We're very lucky.
Susan, along with winning cash in a writing competition, you've also come into money two other ways, including inheritance. What does that mean to you?
So the inheritance that I received was from my parents on their passing. It was shared equally amongst my siblings and I. I don't think anyone receives that money easily because it's the loss of a parent or parents.
What did you do with that money?
In order to honour my mum and dad, I put intentionally half of it into the home I was about to buy. It didn't pay for the whole thing, but it paid a significant amount that I could see my mum and dad in my home with me. And that was very meaningful to me, that was keeping them with me. The other half I intentionally invested. I have been an adult long investor, and it was important to me to use and honour that money well, and to the extent that it now is a beautiful, bigger gift than what it originally was. That was meaning to me in how I used it well, yeah.
You had a third windfall, but you refer to that as dirty money. Why?
So I was the rare corporate worker that had a workplace accident. I then decided to raise a lawsuit against those responsible. It was for a loss of quality of life. It took 8 years. And it went right down to the wire when a settlement was finally offered about a month before we were due to go to a 3-week jury trial. So my lawyers had prepared me for this likelihood. The inkling of an offer will not appear until the 11th hour, and that's exactly what happened. So up until then, it all been, we have no responsibility, it's not on us. And then finally, the cracks showed and a settlement deal, which I also negotiated, came to fruition. So an amount of money was offered in representation of the loss of quality of life.
And what did you use that money for?
I was able to quickly push that money into the renovation. So something that I felt very sick about getting because it represented my life, my experience, at least it was turned into something positive. I didn't want to see that money. When it hit that bank account, rather than being happy or even relieved, I actually burst into tears. Wow. And it did have such an emotional impact for me, yeah.
Are you still entering competitions?
Yes, I will be doing that for the rest of my life because I get that I actually enjoy doing it.
Reggie, some may think you had it all after winning $500,000 in 2 windfalls. How do people react to your wins and your losses?
Gosh, yeah. I do have that stigma that I'm absolutely loaded to the hilt, and I'm not. Look, I won a meat tray the other week and I was getting bagged for winning a meat tray, so...
Really?
I cop a lot of stuff from the trolls online, yeah.
Has money brought you happiness?
Yes and no. It's been a good thing and a bad thing. I guess it's a good thing about the second one, even though I couldn't get a loan to buy a house, because you had to borrow well over, house on the Goldie now, it's $1 million. So it's helped keep a roof over our heads. It's just helped to keep us off the streets, and that's just paying the rent each week. So that's the only good thing that's come out of it, really, yeah.
Jules, did winning the Lotto bring you happiness?
I think stability, which brought, I guess, some contentment and happiness. I wasn't unhappy previously, there were so many unknowns, whereas this was nice to have that surety and just to feel settled for the rest of my life, and coupled with that, Veterans Affairs and Commonwealth Super, I have a pension, I have free medical for life, so that was in train, but this has now got me a firm foot on the ground with the house.
Has the win changed you or your attitude to money?
My wife's better with money than me, so she manages it on my behalf, and it can be easy come, easy go, but I'm certainly a lot more methodical with it. My wife does some charity work, I do some mentoring, and it gives me a sense of purpose coupled with enough time to still do medical things and have a bit of time to myself, just to balance it with everything. So I think I went from 100 miles an hour to 0, a very busy career, to being really sick. So now I've struck a very happy medium.
after recovering from illness and coming into that money, you came to a realisation. What was that?
The support I've had medically, family, friends, defence, everyone, that's been a Lotto win. That's, it's been quite incredible to live in Australia, to have the incredible support. That's far more valuable than Lotto.
Wow. So that's the big win.
Yep, massively.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you all for being here. That's all we have time for. You can catch up on any other episodes on SBS On Demand.